1. This morning, I got into my car and realized I left my headlights on. Thankfully, modern technology meant it had automatically switched off when the key was removed. But it reminded me of a time where that wasn't so. Many, many years ago, I was working one of my first jobs in a little cafe, nearing the end of my training period. It was quite a quiet day, perfect to put the newbie on with only one experienced staff member. The experienced staff member called in sick. Boss had to come in and cover until Sue could come in early. Boss wanted to use the time on site to do paperwork at the back. I'll be in here if you have any questions. I was very annoying. Had a lot of questions. How to avoid an incorrect transaction, where to find more special paper for the credit card machine, what to do when the coffee grinder stopped working. Finally, the boss said, "I'm busy, don't bother me unless it's an emergency. Let me know when Sue's here." Shyly, I replied, "That's why I came to talk to you. Sue just arrived." "Great. Any more questions? Ask her." Sue took over the coffee area and got me on restocking, cleaning tables, and emptying bins, and other necessary grunt work. I went out to the outside bins through the little staff parking area and saw my boss's old car there with the headlights still on. I went back to my boss's office. "Boss, is it an emergency?" Boss snapped. "Not to me," I replied. "Then go away." I left quickly. I went to tell Sue instead. "Sue," then I changed my mind. "Boss doesn't want to be disturbed unless it's an emergency, so I'm supposed to ask you if I have more questions." Sue and I worked pleasantly until the end of my shift a few hours later. As I gathered my things to leave, Boss ran by me, knocking into me a bit. Without turning around to see if I was okay, Boss said, "Sorry, I'm in a rush." I slowed down to see what happened next, getting out my brick of a phone to text my mother I was on my way home. I could hear my boss swearing, "OP!" Oh no. Boss realized what I was going to tell him earlier. I was in trouble. "Can you bring your car in and give me a jump start? My battery's flat." Only a few cars could fit, so only senior staff and management could park there. I walked here. I live 10 minutes walk up the hill. I raced off before the boss could blame me. Next time I was on shift with Sue, I asked what happened to him. "Headlights left on, got a flat battery. Boss tried to jumpstart it with my car, but it didn't work. Had to call a taxi. Funny that neither of us noticed the lights were on when we walked by it." And I realized, of course, she had to have seen it when she walked in. I can only imagine why she didn't say anything either. 2. This story happened a couple of years ago while doing my master's degree. I got an apartment with my friend, also doing her master's, in front of a beautiful lake. We had one neighbor upstairs and one next to us. We only shared the entrance with the upstairs neighbor. That's where we meet with Lady Cricket Lee, the crazy Californian cat lady that worked as a card-reading spiritual medium. The region we lived in was very rural. It took 30 minutes to get to the closest Tim Hortons, if you get the picture. The campus we attended was for the forestry students and was located very far from the main campus, for the purposes of being close to a natural reserve and silviculture sites. We were around 30 students, and the campus was in a village of 1,500 inhabitants. Me and my friend were over the moon with this apartment. We both were doing exhausting field survey for our research, and this place was gonna be our little heavenly home. The first upstairs neighbors were kicked out the same month we got in because of suspected domestic abuse. That was a rocky start for us, having to hear their yelling and loud makeup sex. But we were positive that the next neighbor wasn't going to be worse than them. How we were wrong. This lady called herself Lady Cricket Lee and came from California. She was a hippie with a mean soul. When I met her the first time, I introduced myself to her and explained that we were two very quiet students and wanted nothing more than to relax at home. That's when she told me about her work and gave me a card with her email address. This apartment wasn't soundproof at all. We could hear her snore. She had cats, and we could hear them running and playing with bells throughout the nights. She was allowed to have 2 cats, but it turns out she had 7. 2 adults and 5 kittens. They would knock down items on the ground, and it really impacted our sleep. We were students, so we were already sleep-deprived from our summer of stress and fieldwork. After 2 months, she started complaining that we were poisoning her with our detergent. I'm not making this up. She accused us of sending chemical fumes from our detergent through our dryer and making her sick. First of all, clothes detergent don't produce fumes when being dried up. And secondly, the dryer vent sends the humidity outside, not to her apartment. You could see the vapor from the vent outside, but no. Cricket was yelling and cussing from the 2nd floor that we were trying to kill her. She complained to the landlord, a real pushover. The landlord asked us to use organic and eco-friendly products, which we explained we were already using before she even moved in. We also took the time to complain about the noise and cat litter that she leaves in the shared entrance next to our door. Again, I'm not kidding, she walked down her set of stairs to put the dirty cat litter in a cardboard box. We have a shared basement for all the tenants. At first, we thought it was a box from our other neighbors until the smell became too much, and we took a look inside. Cat shit and piss. It wasn't enough for Cricket. She was a heavy weed smoker and would smoke at the top of the stairs. When we complained about the smell, her solution was to keep smoking in the shared entrance and cover up the smell with cheap incense and a cheap air freshener. Those sold at dollar stores. It was disgusting, and my friends started getting asthma attacks and headaches from perfume allergies. We were even more stressed and sleep-deprived. We couldn't do laundry without being yelled at and cussed from the floor above. Laundry became a stressful task. We would start to wash and leave as quickly as possible, and come back to dry and leave again. After 3 or 4 months, it had all become too much, and we gave an ultimatum to our landlord: it's us or her. He took too long to make his choice, so we left and only paid half of the rent. Now for the petty revenge. I knew her work email from the card she gave me. I must have entered it about 200 times. Newsletters from BuzzFeed to Best Buy and every store I could think of. I sign her up to every drug addict center. I subscribe her to daily religious prayers for Christians to Muslims. I also used her email for an adult site. If a sex toy brand had a newsletter, I would put her in. All sorts of alcoholic AA style of websites, sex therapy website, you name it. For about 2 weeks straight, I would search online for every website I could use to make her work email a hellhole of spam and unusable. It was oddly therapeutic. When we found a new place, we left the radio on loud in the room below her bedroom for a couple of days. Right after that, we came back to have a huge party, with our other neighbors' consent. We took turns to knock on the ceiling through the night with the broom. She was screaming, but we laughed it off. Everyone knew what a piece of trash she was. Our other neighbors had a very powerful stereo system that shakes the walls with the most annoying house music beat. There was a party below her and next to her. We finished the party at 4 in the morning, but the good neighbors were not done with her and left the apartment with the system on until later that morning. A couple of months after, the good neighbors told me that she was kicked out by the landlord. I kept using her email when I needed to sign up for a public Wi-Fi. This all started back in 2018. F you, Lady Cricket. I don't regret doing it. 3. Let me go into a little backstory first. I started working at Walmart before the COVID-19 pandemic happened as a full-time apparel employee. I happened to have grand mal epilepsy that started in my mid-20s around 2015. I am also quite understanding of other people's disabilities and often try to work with them since I can relate to having issues. Example, I use hand gestures and/or writing for deaf coworkers. This helps with basic communication that most hearing people don't bother with, and it's normally appreciated that I do this. I got to stay in that exact same position through 2020 and part of 2021. Naturally, I had to still go to work as an essential employee, deal with anti-masking idiots, and worry about both my parents, who also work in retail. I managed to get myself promoted to the digital shopping department by transferring stores and pointing out certain key skills I have that are really useful in retail in 2021. I had politely asked for the minimal requirements for my department manager of 1, being able to take medication at work, and 2, not having to bring others out to cars because I lack what's known as an aura. Basically summed up here, I can't sense seizures coming. Though I don't have them very often due to medication, and grand mal plus busy parking lot at work seems a bad idea. My department manager agreed to this condition as long as I did other work to help out the digital team instead, which was completely reasonable to ask for in my opinion. So as per the request for a lot of closing shift side work, I take up phone duty, pre-set up the orders to go out, and order returns for the department. The issue here was the personnel department person she kept forgetting about my condition repeatedly over the next year. This was despite me bringing in medical notes from my neurologist for my file, pointing this out more than once why I shouldn't be scheduled solo, and having the department manager talk to her. After over a year, she scheduled me completely solo for a closing, which I noticed and texted my department lead about. I did the official suggestion of hers despite my thoughts that corporate Walmart was likely even dumber than her on basic disabilities. I only asked for the exact same things I asked my department manager for, both very, very logical and minimal accommodation requests. As I suspected, Walmart Sedgwick said, "We can't do this unless you change departments." All departments suggested either wouldn't work due to time and/or location, or they were back at the same level as apparel, which would lower my position and pay. Sedgwick put me on automatically placed LOA after a few days, without my permission. This was to allow me to figure out what I should do over the next 4 months. I called up and asked the Walmart Benefit Center about this. As of late 2019, Walmart signed all of their employees up for a free to the employees' short-term disability insurance, without officially telling them. I filed to get this insurance to pay for my entire LOA, politely told my situation to a total of 3 people, and was given the short-term disability payments, with back pay, for exactly when they put me on leave. I'd rather have my paycheck and insurance stick around for a while, despite Walmart and Sedgwick being idiotic. I quit Walmart after having gotten holiday employment with Target for 2 months at that point. 4. This happened roughly 20 years ago. When I was 18, I worked part-time at a low-end car dealership as the front desk receptionist. So we got a lot of colorful customers and ultimately the occasional Karen complaining and raising hell about something ridiculous. Luckily for me, I was always the first person they came into contact with, so I would sometimes get an earful over something I had nothing to do with. Well, this particular broad, let's call her Betty, was a real peach. She was just incredibly entitled, angry, and demanding. The drop everything for me type of customer. Well, Betty came into the dealership one evening. I worked the afternoon and early evening shift. I was reading a magazine and put it down as she was walking in to greet her. This was her 4th or 5th appearance, and I knew shit was going to go south. In typical Karen fashion, she asked to see the manager. I honestly do not remember what she was so over-the-top angry about, as I tuned her out and went back to reading my magazine. She was the only customer in the building at the time. It all happened so fast, but I hear her stomping in my direction as she is leaving, and before I knew it, she full-on snatched my magazine right out of my hands. Like a sad kid who just got his story taken away, I went, "Hey, that's mine. Give it back." She then proceeds to say that, "No, I will not give it back. Ask your manager to buy you a new one." I then asked her again to please give it back, and again she shouts, "No, it's mine now." What the actual hell, lady? Never had I been treated in such a way. My manager told me how sorry he was and that he would get me another magazine. I told him that wouldn't be necessary. Now, I was a straight-up goody-goody when I was a kid and teen, my whole life pretty much. I never did anything remotely bad for fear of getting in trouble, but Betty ignited something in me. When I got off work, I went to my local grocery store, headed straight for the magazine aisle, and just spent over an hour opening each one and taking out the removable cards you fill out to subscribe to said magazine. And once done, brought them all home. I'm guessing I had close to 100 of them. Now, since I had access to the dealership's customer database, I had Betty's home address and phone number, which I made note of prior to going to the store. I spent another hour or two filling out each card with her name and address, and made sure to check the Bill Me Later box for a 12-month subscription on each. I got multiple magazines for every category you can think of: fashion, pop culture, outdoors, LGBTQ, crafting, fitness, cooking, sports, guns and ammo, African American, Latino American, teeny bopper, traveling, auto racing, you name it, I got it. The next day, I dropped them all in one of those community USPS collection drop boxes that was on my way to work. Still to this day, I wonder what happened, as we never saw Betty after that. I was just really hopeful that Betty got all the magazines she truly deserved. 5. Well, folks, for those of you who don't know, I work on cell phone towers. I used to work in an extremely remote rural area for a now defunct small cell phone company. The conversations are, to the best of my recollection, the area I worked was the type of area where you would drive for hours and not see anything but fields, forests, and animals. Most of the sites I had were what is referred to as island sites, meaning they don't hand off to another cell tower. And most of these sites were about 30 minutes apart on a good day. Well, I worked nights, but you get the drift. So, it came around that a competitor had located quite a few sites near our sites. I, being of the mindset of efficiency, purchased a phone from them, and with approval from my boss, kept it ready, especially during upgrades. But he was the type of person, when anyone above him says boo, he'd jump and ask if he jumped high enough, or should he jump again. So a couple of months later, boss's boss leaves, and we get new boss's boss, who spent 250% of his life in the confines of New York City. Within his first week, he's working the switch and sees me call in from our competitor's number. Of course, he takes offense to this, and it quickly comes down that nobody may use a competitor's phone. I bring up my concerns, but you know, they don't need to do this in New York City, so we're not going to do this. Mind you, my job is to shut down our sites and upgrade or repair them. Yes, I'm the guy you love to hate when you can't make a phone call. Hi! So, it happens a short time later. I'm at one of my most remote sites, a 45-minute drive next to the site on a good day. About 4 hours from home, I do my diligence, call the switch, tell them I need them to change and shut down the site. An hour later, site's not up. I go through everything on my end. Yep, everything's good. Aw, shit. Now, there's a couple of payphones, but they were the competitor's phone. So I start driving. It takes me 1.5 hours to get to the next site because of a freak blizzard. Shit, that site's down too. Roll on to the next site. Usually about 30 minutes, but it's snowing hard, and the roads are crap. 2.5 hours on the road, leaving the original site, I finally get service. Pull over, and in 5 minutes we figure out the switch crossed a number and took down the wrong site. The switch promises to fix it, and I drive 3 hours back to the original site. 30 minutes later, it's still not up. This time it takes an hour to get to the closest site, call the switch again. They get it up, and after 30 minutes, I verify it's up. Hooray! But I still have to drive back, clean up, and make some testing calls. 18 some odd hours after I left my driveway, I pull back in and submit my time, complete with the overtime. It's my Friday, I turn off my phone and hit the bed. Monday morning, I turn on my phone for our weekly call-in meeting, and I shit you not, It buzzes with new texts and voicemails for 20 straight minutes, all from my boss's boss's boss. I jump on the call and first thing I hear is boss's boss.
Why the fuck did you have a nearly 9-hour outage for a 30-minute upgrade?
Before I get a word in,
and how dare you claim 9 hours of overtime when you were clearly fucking around and not doing your job?
Well, there were a series of issues outside of the site, and a freak snowstorm slowed my response. I hit send on emails I had already prepared before clocking out for the weekend with full rundown of events of the night. As a reply to the emails coming down from him dismissing my needs for a competitor's phone, and included his boss, vice president of the company.
I don't want to hear fucking excuses from you. Why didn't you just use a payphone and call for help?
Literally everyone on the call groaned. In case you don't remember, I just replied to a series of emails where you forbade me under threat of termination from using a competitor's phone. At this point, I hear the VP join our call, and since payphones are owned by a competitor, I spent 6 hours driving around in a blizzard, searching for service instead of spending 45 minutes to an hour making a call on a competitor's phone.
I never fucking threatened to terminate anyone. Don't be stupid, you could have used a payphone.
The VP cuts in. It appears, BB, that you do not remember what you said, and Mr. Kerr has clearly documented his actions on the night in question. BB, please call me immediately. Thank you everyone for your time this morning. Please have a good day. This meeting is over. BB was removed shortly afterwards, having a fairly rocky rest of his short employment. I now work for the company which purchased our competitor. I've moved from my home state, though, still work a rural market. It's not quite as bad. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 255. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, I would appreciate it if you pressed the like button. Thank you kindly. Alright, let's see. I think we have a birthday shout out to do today. This is the 4th of May. Okay, so today's shout out goes to Peggy. And Peggy is 46 today, and I will not make any Star Wars jokes because I'm not a big Star Wars fan. But that's fine. I don't judge people who are. Nobody's perfect. I kid. I'm very neutral on Star Wars. Seen some of them, haven't seen others. May have fallen asleep during one of them. Good thing your birthday is during the start of the month, Peggy, because as is tradition here on this channel, everybody gets to celebrate for the full month of your birthday, because why not? You deserve it, right? We all deserve to pamper ourselves, of course we do. Make sure you're taking time to do that. Let's see, your birthday will be Thursday, so understand, maybe during the week, maybe you don't have time during the week, but if you have time at the weekend, take time to do that, of course. Make sure you're doing all the things you want to do. Time for yourself, because it is your day. You get to spend it doing what you want and not what someone else wants. All right, now before I go, I would like to sing Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Peggy. Happy birthday to you. Alrighty, before we go, let's have Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: are there any tasks in your home that really need doing that you've just been putting off, possibly for years in some cases, because it's not that bad? But you know that once you do it, you'll realize, oh, that was really bad. In my case, it's the doors and surrounds, the skirting boards and door frames really need painting. They need freshening up, but I hate painting, especially with gloss. I wish there was a quicker, easier, neater way to do it. I've yet to find it. When I find it, I'll do that. But that's mine. I absolutely loathe decorating. Let me know what your answers are in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.